Let's go. Hello, here we are. It's another episode of Six Star Business Podcast. I have my co-host with me today, Steve Sandor. How you doing, Steve?
Yes, very well. I have a little chilly. We're coming into winter, but doing well. Doing well.
Yeah, good. I noticed the jacket, the long sleeve zip jacket, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in long sleeves too. It's like, weather's changing here, but it's nice. It's a nice time of the year. Well, I'm very excited. We've got our guest today, Adam Walsh, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, Adam, how are you doing?
Really well, thanks, Evelyn. It's again, like Steve, it's a little bit cold down here in Melbourne, but that's all right. We'll get through it. Otherwise busy. Good. Otherwise very well, thank you. Yeah.
Excellent. Good to hear. Well, you've kind of answered the first question I always ask my guests, which is, where are you in the world? So you've answered Melbourne, Australia. So this is an East Coast Australia continent conversation. Yesterday we had 3 continents in our podcast. So it's always a mixed bag. You never know where people are. But yeah, this is a homegrown one. I'd love to get to know you a little bit, Adam, and for our listeners too. So could you let us know who you serve, how you serve them, and what do you like doing when you're not busy serving people?
Yeah, no problem. So who I serve? So I generally serve business owners that are looking at growing their business with people as the linchpin of that strategy. So what I effectively do is I help business owners understand their purpose, vision, mission, and ultimately pull their values out of that. So, the name of the game for Bisualize is taking those values and then creating a visualized sort of representation of your business to systemize them. That's why we call ourselves Bisualize. So, look, that generally revolves around business owners that are looking to scale the business and get out of the day-to-day. So that would be business owners that are, feeling trapped within the business for multiple reasons. That would be because, they don't quite have the confidence in their team to make the right decisions when those decisions need to be made. And typically that's something that we can address with creating that values-based and that values-centered culture, so that values essentially drive decisions. So if we have those values aligned within the business, then those decisions are far more likely to be correct. So that's sort of one of the ways we serve people. The other sort of scenario that we potentially are looking at is businesses that are looking to really nail down their communication and nail down their story to the market. So again, when you take those values and when you really embed those values in a business, you not only get that operational side correct and you get those decisions being made, but then you can take that value set and you can communicate that value set effectively to the market. And what happens is you tend to attract the right customers, because the customers that resonate with those particular values that you're putting out there will come to you. And when they come to you and they actually experience those values sort of radiated through your team, there's a really nice matchup that happens. So you've got expectation and you've got experience, and those values are what kind of makes that makes that expectation and experience sort of link up together, and it gives that it gives your business credibility, it gives it some authenticity. So that's kind of, that's sort of those are the two main sort of prongs of what we're doing. So the way that we actually do those is deliver a 12-part learning program. So there's a short form, which is 4 sessions, and then there's a long form, which is 12 sessions. So we go through pulling out the purpose, vision, mission, understanding the values, and then we start to visualize the business using mind mapping. so that we, once we've mind mapped the business, we look at it from a traditional business structure would be something like, you've got your managing director or your owner or CEO at the top, and then you've got all your different departments and all your different sort of management positions and, their direct reports. We sort of switch that around a bit and we say, well, actually, let's look at the structure of a business more in terms of the workflow and the tasks that need to be performed. So, we map out the processes essentially within your business rather than the positions and rather than the hierarchy. And then we take the values that we've uncovered from the first couple of modules and we start to place those where they need to be. So there's some involvement with understanding the customer journey, and then understanding all of those different interactions that you have with your customers, and then just making sure that you're placing not only your core values, but also people's personal values at the right spot. So essentially they're human skills, I suppose you would say. So that's kind of the way that we structure it. And I find that it works particularly with a lot of modern businesses, in the sense that they're a bit more of a matrix type of a structure. So there's no, or a flatter structure. So you don't necessarily have that traditional hierarchy. It works particularly well in that sort of situation because of the way that we structure the business around the workflow and around the tasks. So that's kind of a little bit of a rundown as to how we do it, and then we end up. There's a couple of implications for that. The work that we do gives business owners a good understanding of what they need, who they need, and where they need them in the business. So that really works quite well for things like skills assessments. If you want to understand what skills you're lacking within the business or within your team, going through this process really helps you understand by placing those values where they need to be. You've got a nice visual representation, so you can look at it and you say, do I actually have those values where they need to be? Is that the reality of the situation? I've mapped it out. Does that match where my business is at right now? So that's really effective for skills assessment. It's also really effective for training needs analysis as well, and recruiting. So we have a product that we call the talent profiling module, and that helps businesses create a talent profile. So we don't use job descriptions; we use talent profiles, which is it's a slight tweak on the traditional job description. But basically, what we do is we effectively give each team member a purpose, vision, and mission of their own, and a set of values. So then that really connects them to the role that they're achieving, or the role that they're performing within the business. So that's that's a pretty quick rundown of how we do it and what we do. What was your last question? That was what I do when I'm not serving people. Yeah. So I run a little side business in woodworking. So I have a woodworking studio just over there, and I make custom furniture and chairs and tables and cabinets and lots of different things. So that keeps me busy most weekends. It's a lot of fun. Probably one of the joys of my life, I think, woodworking. It's one of those things that you're just sanding a piece of wood this big can take you a day just to get it right. It's very, very cathartic, very sort of, I suppose, meditative for me. Other than that, probably my main hobby is just getting my boy through to his 18th birthday and making sure that he gets there happy, healthy, and well adjusted. Yeah.
So you don't get any sleep then? We-
Occasionally there's a bit here and there.
right, right.
No, I must admit, look, it sounds worse than it really is. I do get my probably 6.5, 7 hours at least each night. So.
Yeah. Oh, good, good. Well, that sounds fun. And when you do your woodworking, are you listening to any podcasts or music or anything as you work, or is it silence?
No, I've got so what I'll typically do is go to YouTube, type in woodworking, and just let the videos roll all day. This is something that I actually recommend to people in any vocation, in anything that they're really interested in. It's a really good way to just get random ideas just rolling in the background. The amount of times that I've found, I'll be working on something and just a video will pop up and someone will just say, hey, this is how I do such and such. And I'm going, that's it. That's me for the next 3 hours on that one thought. Oh, I'll try that. So it's a really, really good way to do it. So yeah, that's probably what I generally do. Very informative. You learn a lot from doing that, and it's very spontaneous.
Love it. That's cool. See, I love these conversations. You get to know so much about people, right? Like, we've met before, Adam, but I had no idea about that side of what you do, and how great that you've got that balance too, left and right brain activities. And after long hours in that office, you can go into your other office and completely zone out in that physical creative space.
Yeah. Look, I think having a passion that you don't necessarily expect to make any money out of, or make a career out of, I just think it's so important. It's vital. In fact, there needs to be. I think for me personally, I think that people really need something that they can really dig into, and something where there is no end game. And for me, what I do in business is quite similar. There's no end. You've never got to that point where there's nothing else to learn and everything there is to know about it. One of my other hobbies is I play guitar, and it's the same thing. There's no pinnacle. There's no, yep, I've done it. I'm where I need to be. It's a lifelong pursuit, and I really think that one of the keys to just having a bit of purpose and a bit of, I suppose, inner satisfaction in your life, in the sense, is just making sure that you do have those things to really put your energy into and really put your focus into. Because I think we've all got, it's kind of like you've got a bucket of focus and it's filling up, and if you don't use it, it's just going to start overflowing, and you end up just going to these random unproductive places with your focus, just trying to find somewhere to use it. Whereas if you've got something that, no matter how good you get at it, no matter how much effort you put into it, no matter how much focus you put into it, you will never stop improving, and you will never stop getting better at it. And I think that's just, to me, that's absolutely vital for everyone to have.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. So you've given us such a descriptive illustration and account of what you do, how you do it. Like, you've got your hobbies. It's like, wow, what's been the journey, Adam, that has brought you to where you are today doing what you're doing?
Yeah. Look, the journey to where I am today consisted of everything being the exact opposite of what it is now, to be honest. So I effectively spent 20, 25 years, I suppose, in the technology industry, specifically in security. And I was very, very much on that sort of do as well as I can, make as much money as I can, and just kind of, it's almost like you try and bring retirement forward in a sense. It's like, okay, what's the retirement age in Australia? I think it's 65, probably going to be 70 next year. But there's this sort of, I don't know, it's almost like you're just waiting for retirement. You're just making the money and you're saying, okay, only 30 years left, only 20 years left, only 10 years left. And you wake up every day, just you're not doing what you want to do every single day. And, there's a lot of people doing that right now. And I did it for 20 years. And there really was a point in time where, I thought it would be fine. Okay, I'll just go and do what I do each day. And, it's okay as long as I'm making the money, I've got the evenings and weekends to have fun or do whatever I want to do. But when you're not doing what you're doing, then you start to find that even your rest periods become just a matter of, you get to a Friday and you go, oh God, only 2 days until I've got to go back to work. And that's, so you're already done on the Friday night. You're already, you've missed your time off. So, there was a period of time where I was looking at doing what I'm doing now, which was starting my own business and going into sort of, helping business owners, business coaching essentially. And I had this idea for probably 5 or 6 years, I'd say. I'd implemented it to varying degrees in different businesses that I'd been in. And the one thing that was holding me back, and I'm really almost embarrassed to say it now, but the one thing was holding me back was, a fairly good salary. It was almost, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit it, but it was nice to go to a party or go to a barbecue or, go to a friend's place and know that you probably had, one of the largest, if not the biggest salary in the room. And that was very destructive, really, really destructive, because that ultimately is what held me back from doing what I wanted to do. So yeah, look, I spent probably the last 5 years thinking about this and not jumping simply because I didn't want to risk the salary. I didn't want to risk the, being able to go away whenever we want to. My wife's Japanese and we go to Japan at least once a year, at least we did until COVID anyway. And I felt that would be at risk. I felt that, just having nice things would be at risk. So yeah, just kept doing what I was doing. And eventually I think, my mind just sort of said, okay, well, you've been thinking about this for a long time and you're not making any moves. So I'm going to make the move for you. And, I went through a pretty rough period. And that was a long culmination of many other things. But ultimately, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of stepping outside of my comfort zone. Yeah. And eventually my mind just said, sorry, mate, you got to do it. I'm done. So, around about mid to late last year, I had somewhat of an episode, we'll call it. And, it just forced me to make the move. So yeah, I jumped ship. As somebody once told me, jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down, which is the complete opposite to my normal personality. I'm naturally quite risk averse. So for me to just cut everything and say, all right, I've got a bunch of money I'm going to live on for, a certain period of time, and I've got to get a business running during that period. So but what that's done is that's kind of given me a really good appreciation of purpose, and a really good appreciation of having a goal, having something that you want and need to achieve in your life, which has really helped me with what I do professionally, because ultimately, what drives Bisualize is, our purpose is to essentially, contribute to a society where people are doing work that fulfills them and gives them some purpose and allows them to contribute and develop themselves. That's ultimately the purpose behind what we do. And then, of course, we've got our vision to help business owners sort of find sustainable growth through values. And then our mission is to provide a repeatable framework to do that. So there's the practical side of it, but ultimately what that comes down to is that, I've got a real purpose to try and alleviate a little bit of that stress for people. There's a belief that for people to have purpose in their lives, they need to be working on the latest AI, or they need to be part of a team that's built a robot that's doing open heart surgery in Tanzania with a surgeon in New York. People sort of seem to believe that's purpose. And it is, don't get me wrong. It's obviously, you applaud anyone who's on those teams, but that's not the bar. That's not where life starts to have purpose. Life starts to have purpose in your home. So if you're happy and you're in my situation, for instance, the relationship I've got with my son is so much stronger now that I'm working from home, now that I'm not constantly stressed about work, not constantly in a bad mood. He wants to come and play with me now, and I don't say, I'm trying to do this, get out of here. I stop what I'm doing and I go and throw the ball with him. And that's purpose. To me, that what that's doing is that's showing a young boy that, he's valued and he's going, and hopefully that's going to contribute to, what he achieves when he grows up. So, that sense of purpose is kind of lost, I think, with a lot of people because of that stress and because of that, that lack of connection with what they do. And it can be very simple. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be something grandiose. A classic example I give to people is, there are people out there that love to sit in the garden 9-10 hours a day, just pulling weeds out of the garden. It's that repetitive work that, they love. So those are the types of people that maybe you're looking for in a business for the more repetitive type of work. There might be certain people that get bored with the repetitive type of work, but there are certain people that love it. For them, it's that stability. It's that, it's almost cathartic for them. At the same time, there are people that don't like the instability and they don't like the ever-changing nature of being in sales and having a different situation in front of you each day. There are people that thrive on that. There are people that get very bored with, the same situation each day. So, when you start to really sort of drill into your positions and start to be a little bit less generic about them and finding the right people, that's where you get that, that's where you get that connection. When you really actually start to put some thought into this, that's where you really start to build those teams that are connected to your business. And that's when those individuals will start to get that purpose in their lives, and it changes everything. There's not one part of your life that having a purpose doesn't touch. Every single part of your life. So your work life improves, your personal life improves, and it's just a cycle. It just builds and builds and builds, and the more it improves, the happier you are, the better you do things, the more purpose you have, the more you improve, the happier you are, the better you do things, the more you improve. It's just it's a positive cycle. So, there's, so there's some practicalities in what I do. There's also the purpose-driven stuff, and there's some societal outcomes that I really hope I can affect in my own small way.
Well, there's so much in there. It's I love hearing people's journeys, and I love hearing, when people talk about purpose and having meaning in their lives, and how they bring that into their businesses, because then I know I've got the right person on the podcast. And, it sings to my heart. I know Steve's as well. Adam, what was the point on your journey when you knew you knew what you wanted to do? I mean, obviously you had your moment last year that forced you to do it, but when did it come about that you knew that you had to do this thing?
It was probably a slow process, but I'd say it was probably about 18, maybe 24 months ago. I built this process around the customer journey, or around the delivery model within a service-based business. So I built this model around it many years ago, and it was primarily just for people to understand what their upstream was within the business and what their downstream was. So, how do I affect the person before me? How do I affect the person after me when I'm doing my role? So, and that was probably about 6-7 years ago I started doing that. It was about 18 to 24 months ago where I actually pulled that model out after not having used it for probably 12 months, and looked at it and started to sort of add little bits to it, and realized, oh, hang on, there's something in this deeper than just, right, this is your role, this is your role, this is your role. There's more to it. You can actually start to understand who people are within this process, by applying some I suppose some understanding and some values essentially to the process. So yeah, that was about 18 to 24 months ago where I thought to myself, okay, I need to think very seriously about actually implementing this and actually making this a business, and really starting to push this out there as a framework that that people can learn and use for themselves.
Did you have another kind of mentor or an example or something that inspired you to think that you could take it outside of your organization into others?
Yeah, I did. Funnily enough, it was very timely. So it was a chance meeting with someone at a business conference, and that was actually late last year. And that was pretty much in the middle of my mind saying to me, "We're going now." So yeah, I was in a business conference. Had somewhat of an interesting day the day before. Things weren't really, in a great spot. So I walked into the business conference in the morning, and I met a gentleman by the name of Greg Smith, and sat down and sort of started speaking to him. And normally I haven't traditionally been great with meeting new people and sparking up conversation. I've always been very context. So, if I see part of a conversation that I can get involved in, I'm fine and I jump in there. but I've never really been one to sort of start off and kick off the conversation. And this particular time, for some reason, I did. I don't know why, but I did. So we talked about, you know, what we were doing, and he sort of asked me what I did, and I told him at the time, you know, what I did in the corporate world, I suppose, or, you know, for the company I was working for. And I thought, you know, why don't you try being what you want to be for a day? Just try it on, see how it fits. So I told him about the business idea, and yeah, he was really, really impressed with it. And he said, look, you know, I don't know how, but I want to try and help you. So you know, that was quite inspiring to me to sort of, I suppose that was the first time that the idea had sort of, it was actually the first time the idea had come out of my mouth, to be honest. I had never explained the idea to anyone. I had it on paper, I had it on PowerPoints in a fairly crude form. But yeah, I'd never actually sat down and sort of said to somebody, this is my idea. So yeah, that was very validating, and I spent a lot of the day speaking to him about it on and off during the conference. But one of the things that really kicked it off, I suppose, was that whole idea of just trying on for size who you want to be for a day. And I recommend to people, if you're ever at a business conference or you know, one of those sort of getaway retreats that people do or whatever, and there's something that you want to do, talk to people for the day in the context of imagining that you're already doing it, and see how it feels, see how it fits. Really, really good exercise. So I did that for the day, basically, and just kind of, you know, had a lot of conversations with people about what I wanted to do as if I was sort of already doing it. And to be honest, by the end of the day, there was no going back. That was it. It was, you know, it was going to happen come hell or high water. So yeah, a couple of months later, the plane was up in the air and I jumped and started building the parachute.
It's great, isn't it? I know Av's background, and I know my background, and having heard yours, it's very similar. You know, we've been involved in corporate, we've been disillusioned by it, and felt that there was no real alternative other than to jump out and, you know, try it on your own. What I'd like, we're talking about 6-star, right? So how do we become a 6-star business, or what does the 6-star business mean? And whilst you were talking, I was reflecting on, not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to be in their own business. Some people are very happy to be in that corporate space. You know, they like the security, they like the environment of working in a large organization. They may be risk averse, they may not be risk averse, but they're really comfortable in that. Whether that's their ego, and usually it's the ego gets in the way of you making a choice of taking a risk. So I just wonder, you know, the majority of people aren't in business for themselves. Yep. So there's a lot of small businesses in Australia and across the world, but there are more people working for businesses than there are business owners themselves. So I just wondered, what would be the one piece of advice that you could give a corporate? And I know Av and I, we choose not to work in corporates, not because they're bad. It's just that they're big elephants or big ships that take a long time to steer. Yeah. And, you know, you can potentially waste a lot of energy trying to convince them that this is a good idea when the people inside the business are never going to make that choice because it's just too risky for them in terms of their career. So I'm all about making an employer of choice, creating safe space so that you feel safe to be able to do those. So with your system and process, you know, the values that you have, what would be one piece of advice, not to a business owner, But to someone who's in that corporate space, that where you were, 5 years ago, where you're going, I don't want to be here. I'm happy to have the largest salary at the barbecue, but I want to have purpose.
Yeah.
I want to make a difference. What would be that advice that you would give those people?
So I would say deeply analyze yourself. Find out why you're in that situation and what it is that's holding you back. Like really dig into what it is that's holding you back. And I feel that you will find less value in those things that are holding you back than you think. So, for instance, in my particular journey, it was the nice things. But when I sort of decided that I was going to risk those things, when I decided that I was going to put those things to the side for a time, I didn't miss them at all. And the reason, because, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, what if you didn't want to give up that stuff? Can you have your cake and eat it too? Can I stay in my zone in the job that I'm in?
Yeah.
And have purpose and take the risk inside the job.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So because we're all on a mission here, right? To change the world because it's broken. That's I don't sugarcoat stuff. It's broken, right? So how can we fix it? How can we help to fix it?
Look, I think it's all about opportunity. It's all about putting your hand up. It's all about putting yourself out there. So if you are in the corporate world, you decide, all right, you want that purpose, you want to move, you want to start to achieve things, but you want to stay specifically in the corporate world. Put yourself out there, take some risks. I know that for myself, I probably could have gone a lot further in the corporate world if I had have been willing to put my hand up and say, hey, I want to try this. I want to take a bit of a risk. I think I can do this and not worry about the rejection. I think there's a lot of people in the corporate world that will, they'll see opportunities come through the business and they won't put their hand up for them because they just assume that they won't be able to do it. Or there's this feeling of, what if I get rejected, or even worse, what if I get the job and then can't do it? So there's, and that's all, and I don't mean this in a negative light, but that is ego driven. It's all ego driven. There's nothing wrong with the ego, right? You got to have the ego. Otherwise you're not going to get out of bed in the morning. But I think there's times where you need to analyze, when that ego is appropriate. So is my fear holding me back? Is my complacency, is my comfort holding me back? Being comfortable in the corporate world doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay exactly where you are. You can move through the corporate world and you can challenge yourself, and you can go and get training. You can go and get, you can go and put your hand up for promotions or new roles or, whatever it is that you want to challenge yourself, but still be in that, in that corporate environment that you're comfortable in. But it's really about, again, it comes back to what I was saying, in that first answer anyway, which was just analyze yourself, understand what it is that's keeping you where you are. And just don't fear. Just get rid of that fear. God, get rid of it. Just get rid of it.
Yes. That's right. Totally. Fear. We could have a whole podcast just on fear. Steve,
yes,
were you asking from the perspective that, well, not everyone is going to be a business owner. Not everyone is a change maker who is able to leave, set up their own business and go out on their own. And because like you said, majority of people are employees. So how do they help change the world? How do they be also purpose-driven? Can they be? Is that kind of your thinking?
Yeah, because I think there's a perception that just because you work for a large organization, you can't have purpose. Your purpose is aligned to the organization's purpose. So for me, there's a couple of solutions here. One, you accept that you're part of a large beast and you'll make an impact as much as you can within that, but then your purpose is outside of that. So you're using it to fund a purpose that might be voluntarily, it might be, working with some sort of other purpose-driven entity that is outside of the organization, because you just don't want to be in that situation where you don't want to take the risk of doing it. And fear is an interesting emotion. Excitement and fear is the same emotion. It's just the context in which it is. All right. So before you go on stage, you'll be sweating and perspiring, and you'll have there'll be emotion butterflies. That's fear. When the butterflies are flying in formation, that's excitement, right? So it's the same thing. So yeah, it's around that, because I think to be a 6-star business, the organizations that I've worked with, where the head of the organization has wanted to make a change, it's much easier to work with those organizations because the boss is saying this has to be done, right? When you're dealing at a lower level and that person wants to make a change, there is absolutely no incentive for that person to take a risk. Because if they take the risk and they get it wrong, their career is, in the toilet. If they get it right, they get acknowledged for it, but usually someone else takes the credit for it. So it's having an organization where it's safe for you to make mistakes, and it's accepted, and that's how the organization grows. And that, to me, if you can create an organization, or when you create an organization that enables people to play in their sandpit, do the job the best that they can, and feel safe that even though when they do make a mistake, they're going to be supported, because that's the values of the organization, to come back to Adam's point. So, yeah, and, people go, you can't do it from inside an organization. Well, I have twice, where I've been a director within an organization, and the organization itself wasn't necessarily purpose-driven, but I was. And so we made a change. And then because we were successful, everybody started going, what are you guys doing? It's like, well, nothing special, just caring for our people. And then it's like, okay, show me how you do that, right? So that, to me, is 6-star.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct there, Steve. I mean, it's just that alignment of values from top to bottom within the business, and it's one of those things that once you see, you can never unsee. And it's so obvious. It is so obvious once you've seen it. But I think there's a lot of businesses out there, just to go back to your point where, you were saying, it's okay to make a mistake and it's okay to fail. I think there's a lot of businesses out there that pay lip service to that. It's sort of, I'd rather you make a mistake than not do anything. But if you make a mistake, watch it. It's sort of, where I think when you can really embed those values and embed those, those drivers for decision making and behavior within a business, then you get that alignment. And one of those, without a doubt, one of those values has to be the ability for people to, to push the envelope and, feel, okay, if I make a mistake, I learn from it. What have I learned from it? How do I get better? It's I always used to say when I was in sales management, it's kind of failure and learning are They're sort of, to me, they're the same thing. So I used to say to my guys that, it's like a pendulum, and it swings between the two, right? And you've got success on this end, and you've got learning on this end, and failure is not there. Failure is learning. So the pendulum swings between the two. Now, every time you fail, quote, which is learning, it's almost like the pendulum just gets pushed a little further. So it's almost like, to me, that process of failing is a bit of an acceleration for the pendulum. So you fail, and that swings a little bit further. Then you fail, it swings a little bit further. You fail, and it swings. So the more you fail, the more you learn, the closer you get to success. So it's kind of that. It almost brings in that necessity to fail before you can succeed. You cannot succeed unless you've failed, and that failure is the springboard that pushes you towards success. And I think if more business, particularly people in people management, I really wish more people would sort of understand that every time their people fail, as long as they're not making the same mistake over and over again, they're learning. They're getting closer to success, and eventually they're going to hit it.
Yeah. Just as an aside, the last gig I had, the chairman and I had a massive difference of opinion in values. And I had to make the choice. Either I suck it up and, be someone who I didn't want to be and live with that. That's a choice, and that's okay, right? But you live with that choice. Or dig in my heels and say, no, I'm not. Why would you want the only profitable division in your group to change the way that we behave when everybody else is losing money and we're not? I don't understand that, but if you want me to go, I will. And that was the, that's where it does take some courage, and that's where the fear kicks in, and you go, holy shit, I just made a decision that could be was career ending. Yeah. And I had nothing planned. I wasn't thinking of doing anything. Yeah. And that takes that's a scary thing. And that, I would say that would be the thing that prevents people from making the choice that they don't want to, they don't want to, they're going to stay where they are.
Oh, for sure.
And I get that that's difficult, right? That's difficult. So that's where, then you get your ducks in a row. You then work out what it is that your values are, and then you look for something that will align with those. Yeah.
Steve, I'd say, or can I ask, at that point where you made that decision, in that moment when you had the disagreement and you were going, well, this is not a match, you're obviously this sort of person that was not willing to override your own internal value system, or sabotage that. There's other words that we could use. Is obviously not everyone has that, but you were obviously. It feels to me that you were driven by a deeper purpose, as in you made the decision almost not with your head, but with your being, with your heart, with your gut, because it was, no, that goes against who I am. So the me, the other part, not the rational fear-based brain, was not operating then. It was actually the other part of you. And I feel that, to me, like, I just want to honor you for that, but also point out that that's where magic happens in life. That's actually going with flow. We talk about the river of life. And Adam, this is about you, obviously, but I just wanted to raise that because I just had this really clear moment of clarity around Steve's decision there, and that this is, our life is not a straight line. We know this, and we have these moments, and it's when we are aligned internally with ourselves and our values and who we are and our being, and there's a number of components of that we are actually more in flow, we're happier. Like you've been talking about, Adam, doing the things that you love and making the decision that you made late last year. So how important is it for us in a moment like where Steve was to honor what's going on internally instead of listening to the cognitive, rational, fear-based brain?
I think it's vital. It's vital from my experience. If you don't get in line with who you are and what you are, it's going to, your mind is going to force you to eventually, to be honest with you. I don't mean to sound brutal, but ultimately there's only so long that you can not be who you are. You can only maintain it for a certain amount of time. And the difference between people is how long they can maintain it for. If you're lucky and you can get through your whole career till retirement doing something that you're not happy with, great. But most of us can't. So I think there's that, there's the element of quiet desperation that then starts to creep in. And, if you're not lined up with who you are as a person, if you're not lined up with that, your soul, I suppose, it's eventually going to come crashing down, and you can't maintain it forever. So you do need to address it in some way.
Yeah. Next big, hairy question for you, Adam. What does 6-star mean to you?
So a six-star business to me means that you are, I think, a product of your own process. So what you do as a business reflects who you are as a person. And I mean, it's the core of my business ultimately, but authenticity, your business needs to resonate who you are as a business owner. If I'm not passionate about what I do, I'm going to have mediocre success at best. So yeah, to me, that's what it's all about. It's all about understanding who you are, what your values are as a business owner, and then projecting those values through your business. And whether that be through the way that your team interacts with your customers, whether that be through your communication and the story that you're telling through your marketing, and whether that be through, the way that you deliver and what you deliver to your customers. So you need to design what it is that you do, your product. You need to design that around who you are. And then, really sort of have that consistency across the board. So that, to me, that is 6-star. That's injecting your heart and injecting your soul into everything the business does. And just caring about, ultimately, caring about your community and the people around you. A customer is to me, a customer is a privilege. It's somebody that you're serving, and your team members are also a privilege. They've decided to take a large chunk out of their lives and put that into your business. And I think that should be honored. So yeah, for me, it's just values, embed them in the product, embed them in the services, embed them in the processes, embed them in the team, embed them in everything that you do. That to me is 6-star. I hope that made sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful. I always say it's not 5 + 1. It's a different space. Sorry, you had a question. No. Just as look, thank you very much, Av. I know this is Adam's place to shine. I just wanted to say, thank you very much for the comment that you made. But how I ended up the way that I am came out of adversity 30 plus years ago, when I was working for an organization where I had a monumental failure. And I was a national sales manager with a job that would make your eyes water today. The salary that I was on 30 years ago, in today's dollars, would be somewhere north of $500,000 plus. And I got sacked. I figured out 3 months in that I had no idea what I was doing, and they figured it out 12 months later, right? They should have sacked me like 6 months into it. But that then gave me the impetus to say, I don't want to ever behave like that again. I was an absolute narcissist, megalomaniac, and people hated me when I left that organization. And that was the moment where I went, well, that's not you, Steve. And that, to me, I think, is when that's why I'm saying, people in corporate, there are these moments in your life that are defining. Use that experience then to actually find, and I love that, to find that introspective, because we went away for 12 months and I read for 12 months. We went to Europe because we could. Right? We had the financial resources, and I read a lot of things that set me up for the next 20, 30 years of Steve Sandor, not financially, because a lot of the choices that I've made have not been good financial, have not been money-making choices. They have been almost servitude, right? But that, I'm okay with that. That's the choice that I made. And I think that's where, the ego and everything comes in. And that's why I love the message that you're giving. It so much resonates with me. The fact that human resources have used job descriptions to destroy businesses, because it's about, a job description is just simply a tool for the manager to manage their people. And the manager has abdicated their responsibility to the HR department because the HR department wanted to fill that role. Right? Well, the human resource manager is actually the person who's managing the human resource, not the department. So we've lost our way in all of this. So, I'm so glad that I sat in on this one, because we resonate so much. And I know, purpose is what, what AV is all about. So I can understand why we are here today.
Absolutely. Adam, here, we have these amazing conversations with people from all over the world in all different industries, stages of their careers and their business journeys. And there's some consistent themes that come out. And, purpose we've talked about, there's love, there's impact. And one of the strong things that's come out is about doing things differently. And Steve mentioned before, the world is broken. We don't have to look very far. We've got plenty of things around us that are broken. So my question to you is, how do you feel about the notion that we need to do things differently or be different in order to create a better world?
Look, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, when you stop innovating, when you stop looking for better ways to do things, you grind to a halt and everything eventually falls apart. I mean, to me, it's kind of, to put it in a sort of pragmatic sense, I guess, being better and looking for different ways to do things is ultimately just, it's a process of maintenance. You sort of, if you stay where you are, you actually get worse at what you do. So classic example for me, right, is I used to be in tech, okay? And I used to be the technical guy, the technical guru. And there was a point where I stopped researching the technology that I was researching. And that was because I changed roles, but I stopped researching that, that technical stuff. And I still had the same level of technical knowledge 5 years down the track, but it was absolutely useless. So all of a sudden, you know, I was faced with this situation of people going, Adam doesn't know technical stuff, you know, and I was like, hang on, I'm the technical guru. What the hell happened? So, you know, I think that, to me, that just illustrates the whole idea that if you don't continue to look for new ways and better ways to do things, then the way that you currently do things will become less and less and less efficient and less effective as time goes on. So even for us to keep the world where it is right now and not improve, we have to find new ways to do things. So yeah, for us to improve, 100%. Yeah.
I really like that insight, that perspective. Thank you. Yeah, I've loved this conversation. I've looked at the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been an hour already. All right, so we need to bring this in. Steve, have you got any final questions or comments for Adam?
Notice without notice? No. Comments? No, other than the fact that I really enjoyed. I mean, Adam and I know each other through other groups. This is the first time I've actually heard in depth. So thank you very much, Adam, for that. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, but I think more insightful. I love your introspection and how you look at things, probably because that very much resonates with how I do things. So no, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for sorry. Continue.
No, it's all right. I was going to say thank you, Steve. All right, and final question for you, Adam. Do you have a tidbit, piece of advice, or a takeaway that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, if you've got something that's bugging you, work out what the hell it is and deal with it. You know, if you're feeling unsatisfied in life, don't just accept that that's your lot. You know, that's your fate. You know, if you're not satisfied, you don't have to upend your life like I did. In fact, if you get to it early enough and you actually, you know, take the onus on yourself and actually start to deal with it while it's not that big of a problem, you won't have to upend your life. I didn't do it early enough, and that's why I had to jump and build the parachute on the way down. So yeah, that's my advice to people. Just if you think there's something better out there for you, take the time to do the study, take the time to do the work, and understand that it's hard, but it's only temporary. If you really, really want to do this, you know, all the extra work that you might have to do, it's only temporary. You'll do it for a period of time, and then you'll be able to either, you know, pull out of what you're doing and focus on what you want to do, or, once you've learned those skills, then you apply them, and you know, the 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock study sessions stop. So that's my advice. Yeah, just do it.
Great piece of advice. Don't ignore the niggles.
Don't ignore the niggles. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Adam. It's been a fabulous conversation. What a great way to start my day. And thank you, Steve. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again very soon. Both of you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Really enjoyed it. Great conversation.
Good.
Good on you.